confusion. I've been talking for minutes without anyone being able to hear me. I think we've got a clear connection now, so I'll open the meeting and begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and paying my respects to their elders, both past and present. The apologies that we have for tonight is one apology from Councillor Iskander. I'll move that that be accepted, seconded by Councillor Hesse. All those in favour, against, declare that carried unanimously. The notice of webcasting for the benefit... And
just to clarify, Darcy, Councillor Porteous's absence is recorded, is it?
It is, yes. Her leave has been clarified. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you.
For the benefit of the participants from the public gallery, we'd like to notify you at the beginning of meetings that these are webcast live onto the internet and recorded there for posterity so that you're aware of the comments that you might make in the public domain. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight, councillors? No disclosures. Excellent. We'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the meeting of the 22nd of September, the ordinary council meeting. Are there any clarifications or corrections to those?
Happy to move them, Councillor Byrne.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hesse. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor McKenna. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Is there any councillor who wishes to be recorded voting against the adoption of the minutes? No? Excellent. The minutes of the 29th of September 2020. Now, I gather, Councillor De Cruz, from your correspondence previously that there's amendments that you'd like to make to these to clarify the record.
Yes, I've sent those through to Catherine just now.
Do you want to just briefly explain them for the benefit of the other councillors?
Okay. Look, I think that there's some issues with the councillors going in with the record of going in and out of confidential session, the sequence of those. But main point is that councillors, myself, Councillor Passes and Councillor Stamlis were absent for the vote on the item for points 1 to 4. And there was an adjournment. Subsequent to that, there was an adjournment, and then we entered the meeting at 8:45, I think it was approximately.
So what are the specific amendments that you're moving, councillor?
Can Catherine put, well, Catherine's got them. Can you see them on the screen?
Catherine, are you able to talk us through what's on the screen that's different to the minutes in the business papers?
Oh, I'm happy to talk to the vote on C 09203 item 1 confidential staff matter points 1 to 4 should show councillors De Cruz, Stamlis and Passes as absent, and councillors Stamlis, De Cruz, Stamlis and Passes re-entered the meeting at approximately 8:45 on 1 October following an adjournment.
Okay, I think that's pretty clear cut. Has anyone got any objection to that? If not, I'll ask for a seconder for that. Councillor Drury will second the adoption of those minutes. All those in favour, against, declare that carried unanimously, if there's no councillor against it. Which brings us on to the public forum, hearing from registered speakers. Catherine, I just don't have the screen up in front of me at the moment. Could you just talk us through the names and the items of the registered speakers for tonight?
Yes, so we have 2 speakers on item 2, Arlington Oval. I'll just get the name of the first speaker for you.
Thank you.
Was that Ms. Kozic or Stellato?
Okay, I've got that up now. The first registered speaker for item 2, Arlington Recreation Reserve Adoption of Operational Plan, is Susanna Kosic of Dulwich Hill. Susanna, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you very well.
Excellent. So we have 2 people in the room. And so I did converse with you guys for a number of years. And most of the emails...
Susanna, I'm just hearing a fair bit of feedback.
Sorry, what do you do to stop the microphone?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you have to
Turn the
press
sound
the
off.
button to have the echo to stop? It's actually echoing constantly. I'm not sure what to do.
That's much better. It just got a lot better.
So but I didn't do anything though.
Oh, well, it's fixed. Please proceed.
So my apologies. I did not touch anything. So my apologies for that.
All good. No worries.
So I just want to say we have conversed as a community with various council actually representatives over our last 8 years. It is severe noise. It's impacting actually our daily lives. We actually measured the noise which actually exceed over 110 decibels over weekend and late night games. And anything over 70 decibels is actually considered harmful for humans. So we actually spoke to council. It took another year and a half to finally have some sort of operational plan that we've been given to review in August. So the last operational plan that we've seen and the comments we made, we compared those two and then nothing to be compared because pretty much council did not put any of the considerations that this actually community has been asking for 18 long years. So not to keep you long, we know that this Lilyfield has no setbacks, no acoustic barriers, and that actually soccer clubs are taking it for granted. They're playing the games until late night and they're very, very loud. So are their spectators and parents and so forth. It's actually causing us a major distress. And in the time of coronavirus and the actual recession we are in, people are under lots of stress. This whole community consists of working class people, they're working shifts and long hours, and coming home to constant noise, screaming and shouting and profanities, or having the blocked actually local street, Williams Parade, it's simply unsustainable. So we ask kindly council to actually review the hours and give us one of basic human rights, which is to have time to rest, which is Sunday, and to reduce the hours on Saturday to 5 o'clock so we can actually start having weekends like all other residents do. That's all I'm going to say. I won't be wasting your time any longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your concise comments and thank you very much for your advocacy. Our second registered speaker for this item is Rossano Stellato of Dulwich Hill. Rossano, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got the same echoing problem with you that we had with Susanna previously, Rossano.
Okay, is that any better?
That's much better.
Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. I've been a resident here at Williams Parade since 1994. And up until 8 years ago, I never had a problem with Arlington Oval. I was actually quite happy to see players come and use the ground. But once the Murrayville Council at the time decided to pull up the turf and put down the synthetic turf, it's been incessant. I mean, every night training, they're training this evening, there's screaming and yelling coming from the ground at the moment. And every weekend, nearly every weekend, let's say 3 out of 4 weekends, the ground is used from 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning till 9 p.m. on a Saturday night and the same again on a Sunday. I'm a shift worker. I come home and when I do get a weekend off, I'd like to relax and rest. And I can't because I have to listen to these people screaming and yelling and using loudspeakers and favuzela's, blowing horns, beating drums, and it goes on and on and on. I've looked over your management plan and it's a slap in the face. I saw the last management plan and this new management plan is only granted the residents an extra 30 minutes of peace and quiet on any given day. You know, it really, we are the ratepayers. We pay money to live in Dulwich Hill, and yet none of our concerns over the last 8 years have been listened to. Spoken to council, and Mr. Byrne, I spoke to you in front of a chemist 18 months ago, and when you were canvassing on the street, and you asked me if I had any concerns, and I answered you, yes, Arlington Oval. And you said to me that you would send one of your office staff or have one of your office staff communicate with me. This was 18 months ago. I'm still waiting for that person to contact me. So please think twice before passing this management plan, because it's really a document that doesn't reflect the community. I noticed there was a comment in a paragraph in the plan that said that the clubs, the community and the council would meet regularly to discuss any concerns. This was the same comment that was on the management plan 8 years ago. In 8 years, no one has made a step forward to the community to say, okay, what are your concerns? 8 years, and we still haven't heard council or the clubs approach the community. Thank you for listening to me. Please consider what I've just told you. It hurts us. It hurts us badly. Thank you. Good evening.
Thanks very much, Mr. Stellato. And I encourage both of you. We've only got one more registered speaker, so we should get to your item very shortly if you want to continue listening to the debate. The only other item that we have tonight with a registered speaker is item 6, notice of motion, no to incineration of Inner West waste. And that speaker is Chris Hanson of Little Bay.
Well, good evening, Mayor. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak at this evening's meeting. I've been asked to advise council on some of the pitfalls that may occur if Inner West Council's waste is incinerated. I'm just trying to get my screen into exit full screen. Doesn't seem to be working, but anyway, we'll press on. Look, I guess what we already know about incineration and the waste of energy industry is that the waste of energy industry generates large quantities of toxic ash, and that ash cannot be treated, it can't be recycled, and there must be landfilled in special containment. It also generates large quantities of organic pollutants, which are called persistent organic pollutants, and they cannot be completely filtered out of the stack gases. These persistent organic pollutants, or POPs as they're known, are chlorinated and brominated and fluorinated pollutants that enter into the atmosphere and then build up in the atmosphere. They don't break down. They build up in the atmosphere, in the environment, the people surrounding the incinerator, and also our food chain. In addition to that, the waste to energy incinerator and process creates a lot of what we call nanoparticles. And these are particles which cannot be filtered out from the stack gas using any technology that we currently have. They also enter the environment, and in doing so carry pollutants with them. These particles are so fine that they can, if you breathe them in, they can enter what's called the blood-brain barrier and enter into your bloodstream. The waste to energy incinerator industry is the least efficient and most expensive way of generating power, and in addition creates large amounts of greenhouse gases, despite what the industry would tell you. Typically for 1 tonne of municipal waste, solid waste, we're generating around about 1.5 tonnes of greenhouse gases. From an engineering point of view, it's just plain dumb engineering. When we're engineering a process, the last thing we do is create a hazard. So why create a hazard when we have a smarter way of doing it? What is that smarter way? It's by adopting a zero waste policy. A zero waste policy, if adopted by the New South Wales government, would actually allow us to create a circular economy and reduce and reuse and recycle our precious resources. What's in it for New South Wales? Thousands of permanent skilled jobs, a solid manufacturing base. Can we do it here? Yes, we can. We can design and build this equipment in New South Wales. Does the technology exist? Yes, it does. It's there. It's ours for the taking. Is it being done overseas? Yes, it is. It's being done extensively in Europe. And I guess there is the one big but in this whole process is that we need to actually convince the New South Wales government to actually go ahead and do that. So at the moment, New South Wales is on a knife edge, and I'd like to just share with you, and I hope this works, a plot showing what will happen if we have 4 incinerators burning waste in the Sydney Basin. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I hope this comes up okay. Okay, can everybody see what I've got up on the screen at the moment?
Yep.
We can, yes.
Great, that's good. Okay, so what you're actually looking at is what we call a plume plot. It's a contour map. It shows the extent of the plume migration in the Sydney Basin when 4 incinerators are actually running. So the 2 biggest incinerators are at Blacktown and Eastern Creek. Then we have Matraville, which is the private Opal incinerator. And then we have Walachia. What's not showing here is the incinerator that's been run or proposed by AGL at Mount Piper. That's at Lithgow. What we're looking at here is that the whole of the Sydney Basin is virtually covered with low-level pollution. The Blue Mountains to the west act as a barrier. Sydney sits in a geographical basin, and we get what's called a vortex, where the prevailing winds, summer or winter, actually circulate around Sydney. So we're looking at the average annual coverage, summer and winter, that's going to occur when we have 4 incinerators running. And I guess the decision for council tonight is, do you want to live under this, or would you rather live under a smarter, safer, more sustainable model for society, where we've got a solid manufacturing base and generating thousands of permanent jobs, skilled jobs? Look, I am happy to take any questions councillors may wish to ask of me. I know it's a very complex subject. Various industry advocates have been criticising the use of plume plots, saying that the data is out of date. That's not true. I guess the one thing I should have said in the plume plot I was showing you was that...
Mayor, may I move 1 extra minute for the speaker?
Seconded by Councillor Hesse.
Councillor Drury has moved that there be an extension of time of 1 minute, seconded by Councillor Hesse. All those in favour, against, declare that carried unanimously. Please proceed, Mr. Anthony. You've got 1 more minute.
Thank you. I'll be as brief as I can. What we need to understand with the contour map that I've shown you is that is the best case scenario. So we assume that all incinerators are operating within their licence as best as they can possibly ever operate. The map also, the model actually also presumes that we have a single stack and a flat terrain. So we get perfect dispersion of the plume. Obviously, our terrain in Sydney is not perfectly flat. We have buildings and geographical features which is going to break up the plume and make it drop quicker. So you're looking at the best case scenario, which will not usually be achievable. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Mr. Hanson. Councillors, that brings us to reports for council decision. First item is item 1, use of technology in parking management and enforcement. I might just flag my intention to move one very minor amendment, which I've provided to Catherine, which is just that I've received correspondence from Parking Australia, which is the peak body for the various private enterprises that provide these sorts of parking technologies, who've just expressed an interest in meeting with interested councillors, so that to understand what other providers outside of the New South Wales government are able to provide. Councillors, sorry, Councillor Passos.
No, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say something. I did have a question for Mr. Hanson, but something keeps going wrong with this computer. Never mind.
That's okay. We'll come back to that item. So I provided an amendment to Catherine, which just suggests that I'll convene a meeting with Parking Australia for any interested councillors. to learn about the other parking technologies that are available, not just through the New South Wales government, which I think would probably occur anyway, but it might be a useful learning opportunity for all of us. So I'll propose the officer's recommendation with the addition of that amendment, and I'll open the floor to discussion. Councillor Passes. Yes.
Yes, we're on item 1, aren't we?
Yes.
What would the budget be on this for this?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Kathy Edwards-Davis here. We currently have budgeted this financial year to replace the parking meters. We anticipate that will be between $2 and $2.5 million.
Thank you. And also, would this entail loss of staff?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, no, there's no intention that this would result in a loss of staff.
Thank you for that. Councillors?
So why would it be why should we spend that money?
That's a very broad question, Councillor Passis. If it's a question for the officers as opposed to a rhetorical one, I'll just ask you to be a bit more specific.
Well, I can't understand why we're discussing this. We're talking over $2 million.
Okay, I'm going to rule that Councillor Passis is now speaking in the debate, which is fine. Councillor Passis, please proceed.
No, it's okay. I've got the answers I wanted. Over $2 million and nothing really changes. No loss of staff, so there's no savings. I can't see why we should be introducing it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor De Cruz?
Yeah, look, I think I've got the same issue that we haven't actually got a business case for implementing this technology presented to us. And I think we should look at that before we proceed with it. Thank you, Mayor, for your suggestion of a briefing of the different technologies that are available. And I think that may be quite useful because how they can apply will be useful in our LGA would be useful information for councillors to understand. But I think that we cannot proceed with implementing a technology if we haven't seen the business case for it. It's not just a matter of expenditure. We have to see why we're doing this technology at all. So has any business case been developed so far for implementing this technology?
Okay, I'll put that question to the officers.
To the officers.
Through the chair, we have to replace the parking meters this year. At the moment, they are not compliant with the credit card provisions. So we're basically obliged to replace the meters.
Move the meters altogether.
Hold on one tick, one tick, Councillor Passis. I had Councillor Kiat next, Councillor De Cruz, unless you had any further comments to make.
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Get rid of the parking
that's fine,
meters.
thanks.
Okay. Councillor Kiat.
Thanks, Chair. Through you, a question to Ms. Edwards-Davis. I was looking for the expenditure in the reported budget, and I could only find an expenditure of around 180,000 for the parking meters. Was this a planned new capital expenditure? And if so, where is it reported in the operational plan?
Put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, we do have an identified budget for the parking meters. It's in the capital program.
Councillor Kiat, does that answer your question?
I guess you're saying that there is that it is budgeted. I guess I'll just speak to this item. Look, this item mentions that the report mentions that we had resolved to investigate the use of technology, but it only refers to a resolution from last month. So I was surprised to see the report and that it recommend that council support the recommendations of the consultant report. So at this stage, I'm not ready to support the recommendations. I think that we all know how controversial parking is. You know, it's very important to some businesses. It's very important to some people, some residents, and it also has a huge impact on people when they get a ticket. And it's a great source of frustration to a lot of residents as well. So it's really important that we get the balance right when we talk about our parking management and enforcement. So I think there's the community side, and then as Councillor De Cruz indicated, there's and Councillor Passes, there's the business case side. As I read it, this consultant report indicates a capital expenditure of $4 million, and there's an associated ongoing expense of $4 million. It doesn't engage in an analysis, and perhaps it wasn't asked to, of what that is, what the business case is for that against the status quo. You know, what are our other options in terms of making our parking meters compliant? You know, is this a priority for council right now when there are so many things that we want to be doing to spend additional funds on parking meters? And look, I think we also need to think about what impact it will have on staff, because I think the report, while Ms. Edwards-Davis has said that it won't impact or it won't cause staff redundancies, the report indicates that it's going to have a big impact on their work. And so I think we should think about that too. So no, I'm not willing to support the recommendations. I'm happy to have read that report. But I think we definitely need to talk to our community more and have more information for councillors too. So
Mr. Mayor?
I proposed a resolution alternate to the one proposed by Councillor Byrne. I guess that would be a foreshadowed motion. And I provided that to all councillors in the minute taker.
Councillor Kiat, I'm not sure that they're in conflict. I'm very happy to incorporate the entirety of your resolution as a replacement for point 1 of the primary motion. The officer's report indicates that there will be a tender specifications reported to council subsequently, in which there would be an actual decision made about the nature of the tender. You're proposing that it would be good to commit to consultation with staff and with the community about any specific changes, but also to have a briefing session for councillors on the detail of the report that's been tabled. And that seems very sensible. And because there's a small period of time between now and when the tender was due to be undertaken, then I don't think there's any problem with doing that. So I'm very happy to incorporate that into the primary motion, which will now become the Byrne-Kiat primary motion. I presume you have no objection to the idea of convening a meeting for interested councillors with Parking Australia?
No, I don't.
Okay. So we've got a primary motion, councillors. Councillor Stamoulis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's very interesting. In the term of this council, the old Marrickville Council gets a brand new library of $40 million. Ashfield, the old Ashfield Council gets a $46 million pool. And the old Leichhardt Council gets a brand new fleet of parking meters. Wow, that's a interesting result. But Mr. Mayor,
Don't forget Dorney.
Dorney's isn't finished. That's delayed by at least 5-6 months. And the Telstra square's been sitting there for nearly 12 months in a state of disrepair. Don't know when they're going to be done, so our projects won't be done, I don't think, during the term of this council in the old Leichhardt Council area. Anyway, this is what I call a report of huge substance for council to put this up and ask for it to be endorsed tonight. I think is a big call. I'm moving that this be deferred to a councillor briefing. A number of councillors have pointed out the wider ramifications of this report.
I second that.
The wider ramifications, I think, need to be discussed by our councillors. Additionally, funding needs to be talked about. We have the $2 million funding to replace the parking meters, but there's another $2.5 million to find, and we need to discuss that. Additionally, Councillor Passis raised the issue about why the Leichhardt Council is the only of the 3 councils that still retains parking meters. And one thing that intrigued me when I was reading this report is there is opportunity to manage timed parking very, very well with brand new technology without having parking meters. That was quite clear to me that this technology is becoming available, and that might be something that we would wish to discuss.
Yeah.
In a councillor briefing. Do we want to move to more technology-based options for good timing of parking, good enforcement of parking without parking meters? So I'll put that deferral forward for councillors to consider. Thank you.
Councillor Stamoulis, I think I'll have to rule that out of order, because you're proposing precisely what Councillor Kiat has already proposed and which has been incorporated into the primary motion. That there not be an endorsement, that there be a councillor briefing session, and then in addition to that, I'm proposing that I convene a meeting with Parking Australia to discuss all the options. So I think your objective has been achieved already by Councillor Kiat's amendment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No worries. Further discussion, councillors? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the primary motion? Councillor Macri?
Chair, I'd just like to say, Councillor Cat raised the point of why we're doing this, and the director, Miss Edwards-Davis, actually explained it. It's compliance. It's about compliance. So when we are the people that manage and expect people to comply, we should comply ourselves at the same time. And the report, as I understand it, isn't going towards an expansion of parking meters. It's trying to make it easier for people to access them by using technology on their phone and updating them to bring them up to spec. So it's about those issues, why they need to be updated, to make it easier for people to use so they don't get booked. That's what it is.
Mr. Mayor, we don't have, if we get rid of them, we don't have to update them. So
Sorry,
let's get rid of them.
Macri, sorry, Councillor Macri's got the floor. Councillor Macri?
So in that, I really struggle to see why. I don't see where this discussion is going. If we're going to move to actually get rid of the parking meters, that's wonderful. So the replacement revenue, which has been sustaining Leichhardt Council for quite a long time, I don't know how you're going to fill that void. Where are you going to increase the charges? And it's a balance. And, you know, I do disagree with Councillor Stamoulis. Dawn Fraser Pool is being done. The Leichhardt Town Hall has been done and been upgraded. I mean, there are a number of things that are happening around the area. There's the car park to the actual council building that got upgraded. Councillor Stamoulis, remember that? You got some great parking there. So a lot of the shopping strips would love that. I'm happy to support the recommendation, but I don't think it's really that necessary. I'm happy for councillors to get a briefing. I'll support the recommendation, but it's not about increasing parking meters. It's about getting them to work easier and simpler for the community. And that can only be a good thing. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to check. Is there anyone who wants to amend the motion or to propose a foreshadowed motion? Because if not, I think we're all in furious agreement that the matter should be reported to a briefing for councillors prior to the tender being undertaken. Seems like everyone's in agreement on that. So if there's no disagreement, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against, I presume that's carried unanimously. That has been carried. Next item, item 2, Arlington Recreation Reserve Adoption of Operational Plan. Councillors. Councillor Macri. Councillor Macri, are you there?
Sorry. Chair, I'll move the recommendation with an amendment that asks for council staff to look at ways to not insulate, but through some sort of sound barrier or wall or some planting that can actually reduce the impact of the sound from the field to the surrounding residents.
May I speak?
Councillor Macri, I'll ask you to provide that the wording of that amendment to the minute takers.
Yep.
So they're not having to do it on the fly. Councillor Passis.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is again where councillors must have the wisdom of Solomon. We all support sport and the residents need some respite. Now, I recall this issue before the council was amalgamated. I recall reading in the local papers about the problems down there. it's not good enough. The people should not have to put up with this. And really, you can't tell the players not to become excited and not to be happy when their team scores. Don't ask me why they do, but why they even want to watch the game, but everyone's different. Really have to do something substantial for the residents. We have to cull the hours. We must give these residents at least 1.5 days or a weekend or a couple of evenings where they do not have to put up with this noise. I don't know, maybe play earlier but finish earlier on a few days so they can have respite for at least 2 days. It's not fair. I will say this is like the airport issue. That field has always been there and the housing come later. Well, we must have housing. People must need to have a roof over their head. That's why it is, people are living in it. So we have to be sensible about this. We cannot expect the residents not to have at least 1 or 2 days respite. I also have some questions about this, this synthetic turf that has come up. I'm led to believe that we've just, in an email that came from one of the residents about the re-turfing, we weren't told about this. Why weren't we told and when did it happen? I didn't run for council to find out what's going on at my council from my residents. I ran for council for the council and to tell me what is happening, so I can find out what I can do and what to help my residents and improve things. And I'm really quite fed up with residents telling me what our council is doing. I can't be everywhere. It's a large LGA. So I'd like an answer on that. When was this re-turfing done? When was, and how much did it cost? And why weren't we told? And I'd also like to move an amendment that we go back and we try to give these residents a day or a day and a half respite. Maybe we'll tell these teams to try and play somewhere else or kick a ball in their own backyard. It is
Councillor,
not fair.
Councillor Passos, my interpretation of the comment earlier was that the re-turfing was a reference to when the artificial surface was first installed 8 years ago, not
No,
something
Mr. Mayor, no, I'm sorry, it was the same issue. Councillors would have received an email about re-turfing recently.
Okay, well, no, I'm happy to put the question. I might be wrong, but that was
No,
what I thought it occurred.
no.
I'll put your question about the timing when the re-turfing occurred to the officers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did redo the surface of the synthetic turf field last financial year, and it was replacing like for like because there were significant defects in the old synthetic turf, the old synthetic surface. So the base remained, it was only the top that was replaced. And because it was renewal, it was just done as a renewal project.
And what was the cost to the ratepayers?
I'll put that question to Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Councillor Passos, I don't recall what it was off the top of my head, but I can take that on notice and we can give you that answer.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank
you
you
very much. Councillors, further discussion?
Councillor Byrne.
Yes,
Councillor Hess's hand is up, but he and I have been working together, talking to the residents, including Mr. Stellato, is it? And Ms. Kozic, as well as others. And I think this covers some of what Councillor Passos was saying. So perhaps it'd be useful for the minute taker to display it on the screen. Look, many councillors have probably received correspondence from the residents in this area, particularly the ward councillors. About a year ago, I did go down to Arlington Reserve to meet with some of the residents when it was around training time. And yeah, I could see it was very busy. It's very noisy. It's a very small, if you know the area, it's a very small ingress for cars. There's a roundabout there. It's quite busy at the end of the day. Yes, it's very, very close to residences. And Councillor Hesse knows more of the history than I do. But for me, the really relevant part of the history is that council made a decision to install synthetic turf at this location, which has resulted in an intensification of noise and more extensive use of the field up until 9 p.m. every day. That's a really momentous decision for council to make. I mean, councillors will recall when we decided to move a basketball court about 10 meters closer to someone's house, the lengths that we went to in order to ensure that the noise impact as a result of our decision wouldn't make her life worse. That was in Haberfield. I think the same principle needs to apply here. We've created a problem. Well, the Old Marrickville Council has created a problem. Obviously, it's created some benefits for clubs who use the field, but we've created a problem for our own residents. And I think we need to take the problem very seriously. I appreciate the work that was done in terms of consulting with the community on this operational plan, but I think that we need to do a little bit more work to get the balance right if we're to discharge our duties as councillors. And look, I think I'll summarise my comments in 3 areas. One is the hours of use, that's in point 1. And I think we just need to experiment with drawing the hours of use backwards and working with the clubs to see how we can facilitate that for them. And the second point is around the noise. I think we need to have a really clear system. You know, we're being told this is one of the biggest problems. Well, we need to have a clear system of how that noise problem is going to be dealt with, how complaints will be dealt with and actioned. And I think in terms of moving forward, we really need to make sure that that committee, which is, I think, an opportunity to see some of the competing interests come together and have some discussion and work toward a better outcome. We need to see that committee work. We need the local residents to have faith in it, and for them to know that they can actually have the ear of council, that they can have the ear of the clubs, and that their voices can be heard on an issue that affects them every day.
Okay, thank you for that. Further discussion, councillors?
Councillor
Mr. Mayor?
I've got Councillor Hesse and Councillor Stamoulis.
Thanks, Councillor Byrne. Look, I think this is the great benefit of having residents talk to us about these things, because they live it, and I don't think any of us actually live near Arlington Oval, so I think it's really important to have their feedback. On that basis, the discussion that Councillor Kett and I had earlier, I'd like to, with his indulgence, second the motion, but also change point 1, and I have sent that through to Catherine, that the hours of operation be reviewed, including options of weekend closures or weekend day closures, if Councillor Kett is okay with that. And I'll speak to that.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just, Councillor Hesse, I did add some words to the end of that point because I also thought of that during the speech, but let me know if you think that's sufficient.
Okay, you've got relief days, yeah. I think the hours of operation be reviewed, so just a more broad review, I guess. Anyway,
I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Look, I do thank the officers for the work they've put in. I recognise that this is, in fact, in response not just to the community, but also the political decisions that have been made by Marrickville Council, and indeed, I guess, Inner West Council, but mostly Marrickville Council. So the staff are operating within parameters set by community elected representatives, for good or ill. And I know that people make decisions in good faith, and sometimes they don't work out the way you'd think they were. Clearly, and it's one of the advantages of having lived in the area a long time, because I remember when I actually used to walk the railway line between Dulwich Hill Station, where I was the assistant station master, and the Mungo Scott siding, and via Waratah Mills to check the sidings for wheat wagons. That whole area was industrial. It was only in the late 80s, early 90s where it moved to residential. Now, I imagine that when the football ground at Arlington Oval was built in the early 30s, there weren't lights. So not only were there no people to bother, but also there was nothing happening after dark anyway. So what we've had in those subsequent decades is no doubt the addition of lights at some stage, and then 8 years ago, the addition of the artificial turf playing surface. And I think it was really instructive to hear the second resident who spoke about the impact of that on his life and the lives of neighbours. Having been a shift worker myself for many years, you know, getting a good night's sleep, and particularly when you've got a day off, is just beyond measure at how important that is. So I do think we've got to spend more time getting this right. I do note that this is not a NIMBY response, but I do think the idea of a community committee is very important, but I do think we have to sharpen up how that is selected, the criteria against which people are selected by that, how often these groups meet, and so on. And I think we really have to have a dialogue here. I know, and Councillor Macri will probably remember this, I think he might have been at the discussion I had when I was on council the first time when Dulwich Hill Soccer Club were looking at using Marnie Park for training. And I asked the president of the club how many local players were playing for Dulwich Hill at the time, and the answer was none. And in fairness to the club, they've picked up their game, as it were. They've developed a relationship with Marrick Red Devils. That's a good thing. I also want to note in the report that there's an emphasis on getting women and girls involved as well. I think that's a good thing. But I think that's all about sport. We've also got to think about the people who live there, who bought there in good faith and who are there when they're not at work. And of course, as one of the residents mentioned, this year they spent a lot of time at home, working from home as well. So this can be, I think we've got to do this. We need to spend more time on this, no disrespect to anybody. And I would ask that councillors support the foreshadowed motion from Councillor Kurt and myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Can I
Councillors,
just make
further
a very
discussion?
quick point? I just had a typographical error in point 6. The final words should read, adopt the goal of improving traffic and noise issues over time.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for that. Councillor Macri. Oh, sorry, Councillor Stamoulis, and then I had Councillor Macri seeking to get my attention as well.
Thank you. Just a question first through the chair. The funding for the returfing that took place, mid-year, we've discussed our oval surfaces and synthetic surfaces and the like many times over the last year, but I don't recall Arlington coming up in any of those discussions. Could I just ask through the chair, was that one on budget, or did that come up sort of urgently to be redone?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, the resurfacing of the sporting ground was funded through the usual capital works program. So it was budgeted through the capital works program.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stamoulis.
Look, I take on the points made by a couple of councillors that the synthetic turf has caused intensification of use of this site, this oval, and of course that's what we want to do in achieving that in other areas as well. But I would think as a policy decision, it's very, very important that that council considers carefully where we do use synthetic turf, so that we don't impact on high density residential communities. And I know people say, oh, what's here first and what was there first? That always comes up in debate. Well, I'm sure the people of Marrickville and Sydenham would say their houses came there first before the airport ever did. I'm sure that they would tell us that, but the airport still was built anyway. But look, in terms of protection of our residents, my next question is, what is the Arlington Recreational Reserve Operation Committee going to do? And is it going to involve residents in any way so that they can then express their thoughts and concerns? So this question through the chair. Thank you.
I'll put that question to the officers.
Good evening, councillors. Liz here. Yes, certainly, councillors. That's the exact intent, is for the Recreation Reserve Committee to act as a conduit with representatives of local residents, to act as the voice of that community, and to regularly meet in a controlled forum with the sporting clubs and with council staff.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Macri.
Thanks, Chair. I didn't get a chance to speak to the motion when I moved it because I put the amendment up there.
Yeah.
The only real relief the residents will get is if council invests money in a solution, a sound barrier, whether it be a wall or a planting, to reduce the impact of the noise going across to the units. And Councillor Hesse was correct. It's been a sporting field far longer, much longer than it's been a residential area, because it was all factories around it. The units were built after, and in the days when Sydney Olympic played there would have been people screaming to no end. They would have got 20,000 people there, 25,000 people, believe me. Now it's actually gone down. I'll disagree with one of the speakers that said there was no problem before the synthetic turf. And the simple reason was I've been a councillor for 16 years. I had the problems down there. I went down there. The issues of parking all existed prior to synthetic turf. Synthetic turf isn't the issue. It was the inability to provide enough parking. So in the plan of management, we look at different ways and we encourage people to take the light rail. And if you look at the actual report, it shows people get there many different ways. I encourage people to put their weight behind the motion there to investigate a solution that will actually help the people 24/7, not give them half a day off here or half a day off there. The latest complaint was about, I think about a couple of weeks ago, I got an email. Well, what was happening there? It was the women's first grade and reserve grade competitions came to an end. In those teams were 6 Matildas actually playing. Now, when you get junior teams playing during the day, you don't get that many spectators there. It's kids, basically, mums and dads and so on. It's not an issue that cannot be managed through the management plan, and that's what it's there for. I think the conduit has to be, as the staff put forward, with this committee, with residents, and to have a contact person in the clubs. Now, that was going on before, and I thought that was working okay. Now it seems that it's fallen down. Well, it needs to be revisited and revamped and re-energised and given more power. I mean, I would go there on Sundays and people would tell me, look at this car parked in front of my driveway, I can't get out, and I'd go and try and assist them, getting police down there. I would do all that for them. But it was prior to synthetic turf. The synthetic turf was installed because council was losing a fortune trying to maintain the surface for the 2 teams that played out of that field. And if you reduce...
I'll move an extension of time of 1 minute for Councillor Macri. Is there a seconder for that?
If you reduce the actual time from here, you're going to push one club out of there, and it's going to be a disaster for all the young kids in the area that do play, and a healthier environment, because people go down there and use the field. I've been down there many times and I see residents kicking the ball around with their kids. There's good community access there. It's a lot different from the other fields that are around that actually lock up the synthetic fields and don't let people on them. This is actually a truly public field. And I'm just concerned if we don't try this and be serious about investigating solutions, because that's the 24/7 fix. That's it. That's where we need to move forward. That's why I encourage councillors to support this motion. And I do understand the issues of the residents down there. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion, councillors? There's no further discussion. We'll go back.
Councillor Byrne, can I speak, please?
Yes, Councillor McKenna.
Look, this is an issue for all fields that are adjacent to people's homes. I fully understand the issue that the factories used to be there, but a lot of the houses have been there for quite a long time as well. And I think the intensity of the use is creating more problems, even though there were possibly problems there before. I personally think we should have a standard approach that where houses adjoin, fields adjoin homes, that Sundays should be free. Certainly back in the day of 1930, whenever it was first built, there would have been nobody playing sport on a Sunday, not at the level that it's being played now. Sunday sport should be for the absolute fields that are actually not adjacent to homes and where people can have some peace. I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like to live next door to a field like this. The second thing is we have to, as a council, invest something in the compliance as well. It's fine to have the committee, but how are these? What happens with these when there's this lack of compliance with people parking all over the place and parking across people's driveways, etc. If the area can't take that level of intensity, we have to do something about it. We either have strict compliance with people getting it being managed by council, or we change the way the field's used. So we actually do need to find a solution. It is intolerable for people, and whether we do it through the plan of management, whichever gets up, or we go through Councillor Kiat's proposal. But I do think we need to get it done as quickly as possible. And I think just 4 days or whatever is proposed of no weekend, no Sundays is not enough. I think people should be able to have the use of their homes properly the rest of the year. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor
Brenan,
discussion?
I don't want to speak again, but can I ask just one question in relation to Councillor Macri's amendment, which is I just want to ask through the chair about this sound wall barrier or tree planting. What investigations have we done to date? I assume that this is an issue that residents have raised many times, so I just want to know how far along we are with that. It's something I support.
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of undertaking a detailed acoustic assessment, for example, and mitigating measures for acoustic impacts for residents, no such detailed investigation has been completed to date.
Okay, well, I'd add that point to my foreshadowed motion as well. I think it's a really important point.
Yep, thank you for that. Councillor Kiat is incorporating point 2 of the primary motion into his foreshadowed motion. If there's no further discussion, I'm happy to second the Macri motion just to make sure that it's got a seconder. We've got the primary motion from Councillor Macri, which is the officer's recommendation with an additional investigation in regards to a sound wall barrier. And then we've got the foreshadowed motion from Councillor Kiat to defer the matter for consultation with local residents, etc. I think it's on the screen, it's been fairly well articulated. So I'll go to Councillor Macri for his right of reply.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I can see the way the numbers are going to fall tonight. That's fine. I haven't got an issue with that. I'm glad that Councillor Kiat has seen the sense to actually incorporate the only real thing that can help the residents down there. All I'll say is there's been an extensive consultation in this actual plan already. We're going back to reconsult again. I don't know where that's going to take us, because you're going to activate everyone there and it's going to be interesting. I'll see what comes back. That's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll put the Macri motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands and keep them raised. In support, I have Councillor Drury, Councillor Macri, Councillor York. Councillor Rosidi, are you in support of the motion?
Yes, I am.
Councillor Rosidi. Councillor Passis, are you for or against the motion?
I'm against the motion.
Against the motion. And I think that's all. And then against the motion, please raise your hand if you're against the motion. I have Councillors Hesse, Cruz, Stamoulis, McKenna, Kiat, Lockie, Steer, Passus. That has been defeated. So we'll go to the foreshadowed motion moved by Councillor Kiat, seconded by Councillor Hesse for deferral of the matter and the various forms of investigation and consultation. I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I have Councillors Hesse, De Cruz, Stamoulis, McKenna, Macri, Kiat, Lockie, York, Steer.
York was against before.
Yeah, you were against the previous motion, but are you for the foreshadowed motion, Councillor Passus?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but I'm saying you mentioned York. York voted for the Macri motion.
Yeah, but she can still be for the foreshadowed motion now that the primary motion's been defeated. So I think the foreshadowed motion is carried unanimously.
Sorry, Mayor, I'm not in support of the foreshadow.
Okay, Councillor Drury is against the foreshadowed motion. That has been carried. Next item brings us to lease of Leichhardt Park Aquatic Centre Kiosk. Now, councillors, it would be good if there's not an alternative proposal not to spend half an hour or an hour on this item. So is there anyone who wishes to pose any questions to the officers or to put forward an alternative proposal?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Stamoulis.
The question is, what is the arrangement of this lease that we're providing an extra 5 years? So what is the basis of this lease or its construct? Thank you.
I'll put that question to the officer.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Passus. I'll just put Councillor Stamoulis's question to the officers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer the question, what's the construct of the lease? It would be a simple and standard tenancy arrangement along the lines of the one that the existing tenant currently enjoys with council at LPAC. As we've outlined in the report, the reports come before you because LPAC sits on Crown land, and that's the only reason. Rolling over existing tenants who are performing well, where we have no issues, where they're paying market rent, is often standard practice, and we would recommend that occur in this instance.
Okay, I'll move that then. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Stamoulis is moving the officer's recommendation. I'm happy to second that. I presume no one else is against it. I'll put that.
I have a question.
Sorry, Councillor
I
Passus.
also have some questions, Councillor Byrne.
Okay, I've got Councillor Passus, then Councillor Kiat.
So there'll be no increase. Is there any way we can be told how much the rent they're paying?
I'll put that question to the officers.
We can certainly do that, Council. We didn't wish to compromise our negotiating position at this point, and that's why that figure has not been made public at this time.
Oh, okay. So you'll let us know.
Yep, we can certainly do that. That's not a worry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if there's no further discussion.
Councillor Byrne. Yeah. Through you to the acting general manager. Can you let us know when did this expire? It said sometime in 2019, and why wasn't it reported to council ahead of the expiry of the lease?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. Council, we have, I couldn't even pick the number of leases that we have that are currently expired and sitting in holdover. We have an extensive backlog inherited from the legacy councils that would number, as I suspect, in the dozens. And it's simply a matter of the team working through them as we can.
Okay, Councillor Kiat.
Then, as a follow-up to that, that would imply that there'll be a number of similar reports coming to us. I just want to know: is the land and property policy the I guess, the policy document that applies to this kind of decision making? And how does this approach, where we're re-extending or just offering another lease to the existing tenant, how does that fit with the policy?
Through you again.
Put that question to the officers.
Mr Mayor, it's entirely consistent with the land and property strategy. As we've indicated in the report, there's absolutely nothing further to be gained from going to the market on this, because the cafe and the kiosk are well run, and importantly, the rent would be at full market rate.
I see. So just to clarify, you are saying that when the report says it's determined that no additional benefit could be derived, the staff assessing the contract have determined we couldn't gain any additional income or we couldn't improve the service there.
Correct.
Okay, Councillor Kiat, did you want to speak to the matter?
No, not at this time. No, thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillors, further discussion? There's no further discussion. I'll go to Councillor Stamoulis for a right of reply.
Nothing to say, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. With that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? I presume that is carried unanimously. Is there anyone who's against the motion? That has been carried. I'm just going to hand over to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Macri, momentarily to take over the chairing of the meeting. Councillor Macri.
Yep, Chair, no problem. Okay, councillors, we're on item 4. I'm happy to move the recommendation. Is there a second for that? Seconded, Councillor Stamoulis. Any discussion? I don't hear any discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? No one against. I'll declare that unanimous. Okay, we'll get to item 5. I'm happy to move the recommendation here that the report be received and noted for the investments 31st of August. Is there a seconder for that?
Seconded, Councillor Hesse.
Seconded, Councillor Hesse. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Lift your hands. Is there anyone against? No one against. I'll declare that unanimous. And we'll get up to notices of motion. Okay, it's Councillor De Cruz. You have the floor.
Thanks, Councillor Macri. I've just spoken to Chris Hansen and he's going to try and get back into Zoom, Catherine. So if you can let him in, because Councillor Passes had a question. I think I'd like to
point of order. Point of order. It's inappropriate in the debate to be going to questions. We are now debating the matter, Chair.
I think that's correct, Councillor.
Except the mayor actually said to Councillor Passes that she could ask a question.
That's correct. That's correct. Are we an open, transparent, democratic council?
Okay, the mayor gave his okay. I won't overrule the mayor. Okay, Catherine, can it happen?
We will try to get the speaker back.
Okay.
Okay. So while that's happening, I might just say that thank Chris for coming to speak, and note that he spoke at New South Wales Parliament rally earlier today, which was addressed by Greens and Labor councillors and Greens and Labor MPs, as well as One Nation MPs and councillors from Parramatta and Randwick Council. The issue is, I think, particularly is in Matraville, but anyway, so I think it all speaks for itself. So I commend the motion to councillors.
Yes, is Mr. Hanson there? I just wanted to ask a question.
I don't. Catherine, is Mr. Hanson there?
No, not yet.
No. Is there any other councillors that want to speak at the moment while we're waiting?
I'd like to, please, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Councillor McKenna, please do.
Yes. Look, most of what is in this motion is already council policy, and that's clearly outlined in the comments from the officers, in the officers' comments. The one thing that is not supported by the officers is in point 7, and I've sent in an alternative motion for point 7. I did send it to Councillor De Cruz today, and she did, and the gentleman that spoke, I think she was referring to, didn't support it, but it's certainly constructed with the advice of our officers, and it is what they suggest we should have in point 7 rather than as is in the motion. So I would assume that Councillor De Cruz is not going to accept that as an alternative, so as a part of the motion. So I'm assuming that maybe it can be, and what should it be? How do you handle that, Councillor?
Amendment we vote on.
It'll be voted on, amendment.
Righto. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Any further speakers? I can't sort of see.
Yes, Councillor Steer.
Please, Councillor.
Yes, I'd like to second this motion as well. And I would like to commend Councillor De Cruz for bringing this. I remember the days of smoke hanging over the city when everybody was able to burn off out the back. Now that has been banned for many, many years, and it has contributed to clean air. What is happening with this motion is that public incineration has now become an issue. And while Councillor, and in relation to point 7 of Councillor De Cruz's motion, it is quite correct to identify these incinerators by their other names of waste to energy and thermal treatment plants. Those names make them sound innocuous, perhaps even environmentally sustainable and beneficial for the environment, but that is far from the truth. They are incinerators, they create pollution, they create ash, they let off fumes from things being burnt, and we have to start thinking about better ways of getting rid of our rubbish. We all know that rubbish is a massive problem everywhere in the world, and it's a problem in the inner west. It's a problem everywhere. But we can't, we can no longer start putting these things in dumps. We can't burn them because of the pollution. We have to start thinking about what else we can do. There's a lot of very cutting edge work in relation to rubbish and waste, particularly using enzymes and all kinds of organic treatment to actually dispose of these things harmlessly, and also, of course, disposing of the use of plastics, as we have already done in the Inner West Council. And that was my motion some time ago. And as Councillor McKenna pointed out, the various councils had already been doing a lot of work in that direction. So therefore, it is really important to keep abreast of what is happening in relation to waste removal and rubbish disposal, not just in the Inner West, but everywhere, because if it happens in one part today, pretty soon someone will suggest it will happen in the Inner West, whether we want it or not. And we need to show support to our fellow councils in these other areas and show them the way. We try to be very hard to be progressive and to be at the forefront of environmental sustainability. And this puts us in a very good position to show people that there are other alternatives. You don't need to keep polluting the environment in order to deal with waste. And we need to keep looking for better solutions. And I think this is one way that we can show that to people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your input. I'd just like to see if I could move an amendment, and it regards waste. I think many of the things as identified in the report already exist and council are already doing. So I think it's always important when we're talking about waste to identify different things that aren't there, which would probably improve. And I'll just send, I'll send the amendment through, and I've just lost it. Can you believe that? Okay. And that is that council investigate the implementation of on-site composting in new multi-unit dwellings in the upcoming LEP and DCPs. I think that's an area of weakness in our LEPs and DCPs, because we're actually creating these things where we're giving people bins and we're going there and we're taking this stuff away, where what should be happening is in multi-unit dwellings, they should be composting it on their actual property and getting the benefit, because you're actually creating more environmental damage by going there, driving trucks to pick it up and take it away. So I'd like that amendment.
May I speak, please?
I'm
Yes,
very
Councillor
happy to take that amendment.
I wonder,
Councillor Macri?
Yeah. Okay.
It looks like Mr. Hanson can't come in. I just wanted to ask him a question. Was he aware of the Prime Minister's announcement today about recycling? But Councillor Macri, could I remind you, composting in their own way, we've got a rat plague in the inner west. And this is only going to bring more and more rats. So the only way to address this problem, and I wanted to say to Mr. Hanson, he was very, very informative. And I thank him, even though he comes from the other side of Sydney. However, unless there is education and unless we have a depression, the food wastage that is going out from households just cannot be justified. And I find it's coming from the younger people. The elderly do not waste the food. They shop to their needs. This needs massive education, the same way what we do with domestic violence, what we do with drugs, what we do with drinking, excessive drinking. There must be education on these things. There'll always be waste and it'll have to be picked up and disposed of. So this all sounds good. We all airy-fairy and we all sound nice, but it's not going to go away. Whether we burn it, whether we bury it, the less we have to burn, the less we have to bury, the better. So in my estimation on all this, the Prime Minister came out with very good incentives today, and it needs education. This all looks good on the agenda. It looks fantastic. Goes nowhere. It goes nowhere.
Thank you, Councillor Passis. Are there any further speakers on the matter? If there's no further speakers, Councillor De Cruz, did you say you wanted to absorb my amendment?
Yeah. Yes, I'm very happy to absorb your amendment. I fantasise about multi-units and single dwellings having composting, but anyway.
Do you want to close?
So that's fine. Just in my reply,
yes,
I just spoke to Chris
to hire a
on the
Pied
phone,
Piper.
and Councillor Passis, he did actually see the announcement by the minister, by the Prime Minister today, and he's very pleased with what's happening at the federal level. We just need to get the state level to fall into line. Just with regard to Councillor McKenna's amendment, the advice from I'm having a bit of a difficulty here with the staff comments and also with Councillor McKenna's amendment. So there seems to be some confusion. According to Chris Hanson, putrescible organic matter is not burnt at all in incinerators. It's actually dry matter that's burnt. So actually that amendment is actually not valid. And from the staff comments, I think what they're getting confused with is the methane capture from landfill, from organic matter. That's quite a different thing. And so the incineration is of dry items, of recyclable material, such as paper, and also even drink containers, instead of recycling them. So I think, Councillor McKenna, your amendment is actually incorrect in the facts of what incineration actually is about. And I think that unfortunately I didn't get a chance to discuss it with the staff, but I think that's the same problem. I have actually tried to get a briefing with council staff, as you will know, from the 13th of August, and it's just been cancelled and postponed continuously. So I think that there's a real problem with the Patriciable Waste Amendment that's been put up, and those comments which actually refer to landfill and organic matter being the gas from that being captured from decomposition. And putrescible waste is not going to be incinerated. So I can't accept the amendment, and I think it's not a valid amendment to have. So
Yes, Councillor.
So in that matter, are we? Yeah.
Yep, you done?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll put the amendment up first. Councillor McKenna's amendment. Is it seconded by? I'll second it. All those in favour of the amendment to point 7? Okay, so I need a show of hands. I've got Councillor McKenna, myself, Councillor Passos. I don't know if you're in favour or against.
I'm against the amendment.
You're against the amendment. Okay. Councillor Steer, you're against. Councillor De Cruz against. Councillor Jury's in favour. Councillor Hesse's against. Councillor Stamoulis, where are you? In favour? Against. Councillor Lockie is against. Yes. And Councillor Rosidi, you're in favour or against?
In favour.
In favour. Okay. All right. So how does that work out? Is that everyone? I've got Councillor Cruz, Councillor Jury. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favour, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm against.
And Councillor Katz against. So that's been lost. And we'll put the motion up now.
What about Councillor York didn't vote? Is she not there?
Councillor York, are you there? I can't. No, she's not there.
She must be there. Sorry.
No, she's not there. Okay, so that's been lost. So I'll put the motion up. All those in favour of the motion say aye. Those against? Anyone against? Anyone against? Declare it unanimous. Okay. All right, we'll go over to item number 8. Councillor Hesse, you've got the floor. Yep.
Councillor Macri, sorry, just reaching for my papers. Councillor, it's item 7, yeah?
Oh, that's right, item 7, yes?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, okay, so I think there's an amended, I sent the amended version out to make sure it was all proper to councillors this afternoon, so I'm not sure if people have read it, but it's up on the screen for everyone in any case. Just to make it very, very clear, this is not a motion saying that we should meet on video link or Zoom for the rest of time. It's actually talking about what we do when we're meeting face-to-face again, and simply allowing, actually what we're asking for is to, indeed, serendipitously, I'm sure that I'm asking for us to support writing to the Minister for Local Government to permanently allow councillors to speak and vote at council meetings by audiovisual conferencing facilities, the aim of increasing participation in local government, particularly women. And indeed, I note that the Minister, Shelley Hancock, was out last week after I put the motion in, asking for exactly the same thing. So it's lovely to think that we're in sync on this. Quite seriously, this is a fundamentally, I think what we've demonstrated is that we can meet effectively with technology upgrades and ensure or maximise the possible participation of elected representatives of our community in council deliberations. And I think that that's what the aim of it is. I think it is better to meet in public, both in public, that is in a physical meeting space where we can. And I look forward to that day happening again soon. But I know for myself that I know when I was in my first term of council, I spent 6 months working in Newcastle. And I did make a hell of an effort to get back for the council meeting nights. But I tell you what, I was a bit of a zombie when I got there. It'd be much better sitting in the hotel room, zooming in if that was available. So I think really what this is about is expanding the possibilities of people being able to participate as councillors. We have to, of course, get the agreement of the state government to do that, and they have to amend the Local Government Act. So that's point one. On point two, it's really clear. I think we've all noted that with the amalgamated council, people in various parts of the local government area do find it difficult to get to Ashfield at night, particularly those people in my ward down Tempe and other places like that. It's quite inconvenient. I think also people in the Balmain Peninsula have similar issues. So it's really, and also people have work lives. To speak for 3 minutes, that's great. But again, it's a greater flexibility, and I hope that councillors would support that. We can amend our code of conduct to go there, and of course we have to investigate how much this all costs. And I look forward to that report back. I'm saying February because it is now October. I'm aware that time is getting away. Probably only got about 3 or 4 more meetings before the end of the year, so let's make it easy. So I'm happy to consider any amendments to make sure we get it right. But the intent, of course, is to make council more open for people who want to run for council, one of whom will not be me, but also people who are residents who want to speak. Thank you.
Okay, speakers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Passis, please.
Yes. Well, Councillor Hesse, you were aware of the area of the amalgamated council when you stood for council. And I find it interesting now that you think coming from St. Peter's or Marrickville area to Ashfield is a long trip. We're in the inner city, for God's sake. Now, the minister wanted more women to stand for council. She didn't say she wanted more women to use Zoom. I cannot understand how a councillor can come up with all these excuses and are saying that it's too hard to go to a couple of council meetings and or even briefings. You know what's involved in council. You've ran for a while. I don't think you would expect that a council meeting would be next door. Nobody, the same family would all run for council. Now, you see the problems we have with technology. And you're also looking, we've spent millions already on technology, and now you want to spend more. And it doesn't work. It does not work. And the residents have a right to come to a council meeting, observe their councillors, listen to debate. That is part of democracy, not people in their lounge room, chewing, playing with their pets, leaving and going getting a coffee and coming back. Are you on? No, I'm not on. Oh, my computer's not working. This is ridiculous. We have an obligation to our residents. And also, and as for confidential meetings, how confidential are meetings when we don't know who's in the lounge room with the councillor? I just can't believe it. May I suggest, if St. Peter's to Ashfield is too far, and people think it's too far, the LGA is too large, don't stand for council. Just to change all the rules because you find it too far to travel. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever been on a holiday? You must stay in. When you said Newcastle, I couldn't believe it that you've been to Newcastle.
Councillor, please, can we?
No, I have had the worst time with this COVID issue, with technology, with asking people to help me, which I've had no support, going up to council, being refused entry. I was even told today that I can go up to the chambers, but there'll be no IT support. To me, that's discrimination. And now we've got councillors whinging because they have to travel from St. Peter's to Ashfield. What about the people coming from the coast every day to work? Don't stand for council. Weigh up the options before you stand. I will not be voting for this motion. As far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't even be on the agenda. We should be talking about getting back to physical meetings as soon as we can.
Your time's expired, Councillor Passos. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I expired myself.
Thank you. Councillor Lockie.
Oh, I'd just like to second the motion and just say I think it's pretty clear in the wording of the motion, as well as Councillor Hessie's comments, that he's not seeking to preclude physical meetings, face-to-face meetings from happening. In fact, it's more about opening it up to allow more forms and more democracy to occur. It's a good time to write to the Minister for Local Government to ask for her to support this as well, since she is very clearly on the record as saying that remote access to council meetings could help us overcome one of the barriers to increasing the number of female councillors in New South Wales councils, among, and women are just one group who would find this easier, participation easier if it were to be lifted. Younger people, people living with disabilities, people who have caring responsibilities, are just a few more examples of groups who potentially could find council a more serving their community as a councillor a more feasible option if there was more flexibility offered in the way that meetings and briefings and so forth can be attended. So that's why I'm seconding the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lockie. Any further speakers on this item?
Councillor Macri?
Yes, Councillor Stamoulis.
Yeah, look, I'm in two minds about this motion. The main reason is that councillors only have 2 responsibilities a month to turn up to meetings. I suppose it would be nice to demonstrate to our residents we can actually do that. In terms of our briefings, maybe we could be a little bit more relaxed about that, and most councillors know the amount of briefings that we've had. You could probably count on one hand over the last 1.5 years or thereabouts. We've had very, very little in the terms of briefings. But for 2 meetings, I don't think it would hurt us as a group of elected officials to actually turn up to work. But I do agree also that there needs to be options. Sometimes parental responsibilities make it difficult. Looking after sick relatives do make it difficult. I think for some, I certainly don't believe that the website is the most the dire concern about whether or not you'll participate in politics. I think if anything, it's pay who keeps the pay issue is what keeps most people away, particularly if you are parents with children or people who have jobs. 25,000 a year certainly doesn't incentivise you to want to make that huge commitment, nor does the 30,000 now do that. So look, I'm in two minds. If this was going to be canvassed with LGNSW or at the local government conferences, so it became more consistent, I would rather that be the motion, in fact, that we canvass this more widely throughout New South Wales to see whether or not others would accept that. And I've been one of those councillors also that have mentioned that Ashfield is sitting right on the edge. The Ashfield Chamber is right on the edge of the municipality, making it difficult to get across from St. Peter's or Birchgrove or Balmain. So it is a difficult area to get to. And maybe when we're thinking about our new accommodation, it needs to be somewhere central. So there's other things to consider first. But if Councillor Hesse was to propose that we run this by other local government associations or the conference, I'd support that. The motion as it is now, maybe not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Yes, Councillor Steer.
Councillor Steer, yes. Councillor Steer,
Yes, I'm speaking in support of this motion. We live in a modern society and many people, including myself, are successfully working remotely from home. I myself am doing court hearings on a regular basis remotely, and I'm actually having great success with them. What we've found is that they go quicker and we actually get better results because people are more concentrated on them. With council meetings, it's not to, I gather that Councillor Hessie's motion is not to abolish face-to-face meetings by any means, but to allow councillors to participate by audio-visual conferencing facilities when it suits them better. And there are many reasons why it can suit them better. It's not just because they're too lazy to physically attend a council meeting, as has been suggested here. It may be that they have a physical disability that prevents them from attending a council meeting. They may have childcare obligations that make it difficult to attend a council meeting. They may have work difficulties for leaving work on time to get through the traffic to a council meeting, and yet would be able to participate perfectly well through audio-visual means. Since we have been having our Zoom meetings, we have been making sensible decisions on a variety of subjects, and our meetings have been conducted in a civil and productive manner for the most part. And I think that is a credit to all the councillors and also a credit to the technology that we are using. Sometimes it doesn't work properly. Sometimes there's a glitch or a slow internet feed or something like that. But what we have found is that the fellow councillors allow for this and make allowances, and no councillor has been prevented from speaking their mind through
I'm afraid to say
glitches alone.
Councillor Passos, let's speak.
That's incorrect.
Please, Councillor, please.
Yes. Now, audio-visual conferencing is not the way of the future anymore. We're not talking space age stuff. We are talking right here, right now. People are doing this on a daily basis in their work, in their personal lives, and everyone is now familiar with it. Yes, we could have better equipment. I think we ought to have at least a TV screen that we can at the council chambers, where we can, if people come in with a Zoom meeting, we can connect that to a laptop and we can all see them and hear them properly. There are many ways that we can use the technology that is currently available to improve the audio-visual experience. And that is why I am supporting this motion, and I hope that all the other councillors do too. Thank you.
Any further speakers on this item? If there's no further speakers, I'll just say a couple of things. I think it is a commitment that is on us when we are elected to actually go to a place all together and discuss issues, and the public have a right to actually see us all together and discussing the issues. If there was a reason why a person couldn't attend, that was a genuine reason, I don't think I would oppose that. But I think until we get through this crisis, and these are continuing anyway, I don't think we really need to move this quickly on this, that's all. So I won't support it, but that's fine. Councillor Hessie, would you like to close?
Yes, I would, Councillor Macri, and I'm sorry that you have such a negative view of it. This is not about now. This is about the future. And I do thank Councillor Lockie and Councillor Steer, who perfectly understood what the intention of the motion is. I agree that we should all make the effort to attend physically at the council chambers. And I agree with Councillor Stamlis that the council chambers should be located more centrally, and indeed have voted that way, along with Councillor Stamlis. But the issue is about expanding the participation of those of us who are elected to represent our communities. And I will repeat this because it does seem that some people have missed it. This is not about regular meetings. This is about if you do have an ill family member. This is about if you happen to be called away from work to work in another city or town from time to time. And if we are elected, and we also have a working life, because Councillor Stamler said, and I agree with him, the pay is not magnificent. So councillors do have to do those things. I've done those things in the past. And I've made significant efforts to get to the council meetings to represent the community. The absence of this technology, though, when it is, as Councillor Steer rightly points out, so readily available at this point, would actually seek to exclude representatives of the community. This is not space age technology. I've actually been using this technology since the late 90s to include people in decision making, and that's what this is about. It's not either or. This is saying this is an addition. This is about making it easier for elected members of our community, and as far as point 2 is concerned, members of our community who want to give us the benefit of their experience, like we had tonight on Arlington Oval. I mean, I learned something from what the residents said there. That was really important. Now, it could be there at work. I mean, one gentleman was doing shift work. Now, if he can take 5 minutes out in a meal break, maybe to speak to council, that's a great thing, but he may not be able to get to the council meeting. Let's use the technology to enhance democracy. Let's not avoid technology and keep ourselves in the 19th century. We don't need to do this. I do hope that councillors do think very hard about this and support this motion. And I believe it will be well received by the state government. Thank you.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
We've already closed, Councillor Passes.
Okay.
We've already closed. We're going to take the vote now. All those in favour of the motion, say aye. So I've got Councillor Jury, Councillor Hesse, Councillor Stamoulis, is your hand holding your chin?
No.
No. Okay. Councillor Lockie, Councillor Rossetti, no. Yes. No. Okay. Councillor Kiat, yes. Councillor York, are you there? Okay.
We'd know if she was there, if it was a physical meeting, we'd see her.
Okay. Have I got everyone there? Councillor York is there. She's got her hand up. She has her hand up. Is Councillor McKenna still with us?
She's in favour. She's there.
She's in favour. Yep. Okay. And Councillor Steer's in favour. And Councillor
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
Councillor.
No. Nobody says she's in favour when we can't see it.
I can see her, Councillor Passes, and I can see
can't.
Steer. Well, I can. Councillor Steer and Councillor De Cruz, are you in favour? Councillor De Cruz? Yes, she's in favour. The rest of the councillors, myself, Councillor Paulos and Passes and Rossetti are against. Okay, declare that carried. All right.
Can you tell me where the mayor is? Where is the mayor?
He got called away.
Beg your pardon?
He got called away. Councillor Hesse, item 8.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate the call. I think this motion is pretty straightforward. It actually followed community feedback around the golf course discussion. Really, the people was talking about as people aware how people use the area along the Crooks River, and I won't go into the particular details. It's pretty self-explanatory. Some of the centre lines need redoing, and there are areas where they don't exist. So it's trying to enhance pedestrian safety and indeed safety generally. Some of the signs need a bit of review as well, and I think we need to look at the pedestrian crossings, particularly across Illawarra Road. I recognise that some of the pedestrian bays there that are halfway across are indeed a good safety thing generally. However, just getting across Illawarra Road down there at times is very, very difficult indeed. I've noticed that a lot of residents have raised that with me. So it's really raising the possibility of putting in pedestrian crossings to enhance safety, working with the pedestrian refuges as well, and the same thing on Wardell Road. The golfers use the issue there at Wardell Road as well. So it's about enhancing safety for everybody. So yeah, I hope that I'm happy to consider any amendments and answer any questions in the right of reply. Thank you.
That's all right. I'm happy to second that motion.
May I speak?
Thanks, Vic.
Yeah, Councillor Passos.
Yes, Mr Mayor, this is a good motion. I think it should go to the Traffic Committee. I also have an issue of residents needing a pedestrian crossing in Leichhardt. This is very important. We also need most of our traffic road markings repainted. We have speed humps that are disintegrating. I think I'd like to move an amendment, a foreshadowed motion, that this motion goes to the Traffic Committee, and we also receive a report on the backlog of these type of things that need doing, repainting, resurfacing speed humps. This is all over the municipality. Potholes right at a speed hump. You go up a hump and come down into a hole. And as I said, I'll be sending something through to the Traffic Committee where a pedestrian crossing is needed near a school. We have to look at this, I think, overall. A lot of work needs to be done. I'll support this motion, of course, but I would also like to put forward that we have a report back on what is a backlog on these type of things, and like the remarking of our traffic signals, or whatever you want to call them. It's a big problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Passos. I think part of this motion will go to our capital works, and part of it will go through the Traffic Committee. It crosses over both boundaries.
Councillor Mack.
Yep, Councillor Stamoulis. Yes.
I note the officer's comments there that this is unbudgeted and due to current workload constraints would not be considered a priority project. So while I'm going to support the motion, I'm looking at the likelihood of this being implemented. Could I pose a question through the chair?
Yes.
To the officer to see whether or not we could get some action on this. Thank you.
Yep. Through the relevant officer.
Through you, Chair, it's unbudgeted. So it would be a matter for councillors to find a funding source in order to accelerate the planning and scoping work, and then the delivery of those works is a matter for the Director of Infrastructure, but it's not something I don't know that would be able to be delivered in the next financial year, but perhaps she can clarify.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I presume it goes on the list of things to do, basically, until we can find the funding source.
Chair, would you like me to just provide a comment?
Yes.
The first step would actually to do pedestrian and vehicle counts to see if it meets the warrant. If it meets Transport for New South Wales's warrant, then we would look to put it on a future capital works program.
Okay, thank you. Is that all right, John?
Yes, thank you for that.
Okay, any further speakers?
Mr Mayor, have we got two deputy mayors? When the vote comes up, we've got two deputy mayors.
What do you mean?
Well, it's got Councillor Rasidi deputy and you deputy.
Wow. Sharing the power. Sharing the power, Councillor Passos. I don't think it's really important. Okay.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, don't say you don't think it's important.
Well,
this council should look at detail.
Okay, Councillor Passos, we'll take that on board. If no further speakers, I'd like to put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Is anyone against the motion? No one against? We'll carry that in.
I'm against.
You're against? Councillor Jury is against. Okay. Not a problem. Okay. The next one is the Whites Creek Valley Park revocation of the companion animal off-leash status, Piper Street to Brenan Street Walkway. I'll move the recommendation. Is there a seconder?
Yes.
Seconded, Councillor
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Macri, is the recommendation not that we move into confidential session?
Oh.
Well, no, the recommendation is to revoke the existing declaration in respect to public off-leash walkway. That's what I'm moving, the public recommendation. Do you want to go?
Sure. It also says, Mr. Mayor, that confidential attachment, I don't have any such attachment on the hard copy.
Well, there is. We've received a confidential book as well.
I'm holding mine up to the screen. There it is. I got mine.
We all got it.
Well, I didn't.
Okay. Might have been an oversight. Did the councillors want to go into confidential session to discuss it?
It may be necessary for item 10. It may not be necessary for item 9. I mean, I agree with the recommendation, so I don't feel the need to debate it unless others do.
Okay. Does anyone feel like they need to debate the recommendation?
Mr. Mayor, I won't be voting on this because I don't know what I'm voting on.
That's okay, Councillor Passis. That's fine.
I'll move the recommendation. You moved it. I'll second it.
I think it was seconded by Councillor Stamoulis already.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yep. Okay. No discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour, aye. Those against, is anyone against? No one is against. Okay, that's been carried.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, has the Mayor left the meeting?
He's not here, no.
So he's left the meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, item number 10, do we wish to go into confidential session?
Move the
Councillor Macri.
recommendation as printed.
Okay, by Councillor McKenna, seconded by myself. Councillor Kiat.
Yep, so I wanted to move an amendment, and I've circulated that. I think part of that refers to confidential information, but it's not strictly necessary. It was more for councillors' information. But I would, if we don't move into confidential session, which I'm happy not to do, I would just like to propose as an amendment item 1B, which is that 50% of the monetary contribution received be dedicated into the Affordable Housing Fund. Now, I don't. I'm happy to take advice on this, whether this would require us to move into confidential session, but I don't think it should.
No,
Can I just say that? Can I just say point C should not be included?
Acting Chair, can we please move into confidential session?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
I'll move that we move into confidential session, seconded by Councillor Kiat. All those in favour say aye. All right, unanimous? Okay. All right.
We usually have to wait for a moment while they suspend things, Vic.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'll wait to get the signal. We're off the air. If Catherine will let us know.
I'm sure she'll be.
Just working on it.